Assalamu alaikum, everyone, and welcome to the Women's Mosque of America's first discussion circle for our Quran Literacy Program 2025. So, this is our second year. And for those of you who are new to the Women's Mosque of America, we literally just celebrated our 10-year anniversary. So, we're really excited. Alhamdulillah, the Quran Literacy Program was our number one priority when we first began. It took so much to get this off the ground. And we're so excited that, it was a success last year and this year it's continuing strong. So we want to thank you again for joining our space. I know that a lot of people are joining the Quran Literacy Program who are maybe not familiar with the Women's Mosque. So it's been really fun to see all these new people from around the world, really, who are joining our space now. So if you would like to support us, we always appreciate donations. We are a very small nonprofit. We know how to stretch a dollar, but with that comes a lot of effort and a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. So the more that you can support us with a generous donation to celebrate our 10-year anniversary, the more it just makes everything run smoother. We really appreciate that. So, as promised, this year we wanted to make it a little bit more social. So, today's icebreaker question is what is a favorite food that you have that brings up a good memory for you? All right. Did anyone say hot Cheetos? That was me. No. They came out in 8th grade and I used to sneak them in class even though you weren't supposed to eat in class. And I got red fingers. I got in trouble a lot. But anyone want to share just for fun?
My response was water. And I know it's not a food, but that's
great. Yeah.
that's the one with the most positive memory that I have. And my backup was oatmeal, just in
Oh,
case you wanted something besides water.
beautiful. Yes, water is a very Ramadan answer, and we're about to hit Ramadan, so that's great. And then someone before said pomegranates because it reminded her of her immigrant parents. Raja.
So for me, sweet potato pie.
Yum.
Um, I think back when I was growing up and my living back east, and there was this circle of family there, and so whenever there was a gathering, there was always either sweet potato pies around, or the other one was homemade bread.
Okay, I'm
Vinegar.
expecting an invitation to your house soon, inshallah. You can't tease us like that. Okay, Nayawia, go ahead.
I thought of a bakery truck that would come through our neighborhood when I was little. It had fresh donuts and the smell of donuts, and so that was a good memory for me.
Beautiful. Yeah, so the point of this question today is, in the Quran, God instructs us to get to know one another. God purposely created us from different tribes and nations so that we can get to know one another. And this exercise is just to show that it can be fun. Talking about race and our differences doesn't have to be this painful, horrible experience. It can literally be as fun and simple as let's just share our, what we consider as a good food memory or, anything like that. So, inshallah, every single discussion we'll have like a fun little icebreaker, question for you guys, so that you can get to know one another. Okay, so for our very first discussion, I wanted to just start with a general question. So I know we have a lot of people who are literally reading the Quran for the very first time in their lives. We also have people who are reading it for the first time in a women-led space. And we have other people who, everyone's joining with different levels of interaction with the Quran. Some people have kind of read verses or are familiar with the verses, or maybe have recited the Arabic but never read it in English. So I just wanted to open it up to a general discussion. What were your initial impressions? So we started almost maybe 2.5 weeks ago reading the Quran. Some of you are reading every single day to end in 1 year. Some are reading every other day to end in 2 years. Some are reading it twice a week to end in 4 years, and some are reading it once a week to end in 7 years. So, whoever would like to share, what's been your initial experience like reading the Quran?
I am just astonished and amazed at the beauty of the Quran and so grateful for this program. I am one of the ignorant people who has been a Muslim for a long time because of the prayer practice. That's why I joined Islam, why I reverted. And I was always stopped cold by al-Baqarah, by the cow. I could, all the variants of the Quran, I tried reading the English. I could not understand the meaning of the cow and why the cow was significant. And I just pondered over it. And alhamdulillah, your curriculum, mashallah, is just like, oh, so that's why the cow is important. And that's what it meant. And now I can keep going. So thank you very much. I just, and going back into the Quran, it's just amazing to this to read this translation that has such incredible footnotes, and the transliteration and the Arabic, which I can't see without my magnifier. But did I answer the question? Can I shut up now?
Yes, you did. No, no, no. And please, I didn't say this as an official rule, but you will get me saying this. No put downs, no disclaimers. So we don't want you to put yourself down. You're not ignorant. Everybody's ignorant. None of us is God, right? We all have stuff to learn. And we don't want you to shut up. Everyone's sharing. So thank you for sharing that. That's really helpful to hear, and I think really what that has to do is the approach to reading the Quran. Are you reading it to live life, or are you just reading it for some other reason, right? To get through it or to memorize it or whatever sort of marker. Okay, so next I'll go to Rola and Matthew. Go ahead.
So Arabic is my native language, and I grew up like memorizing parts of the Quran in Arabic. But then it's like really my first time to read the English version in more of a systemic manner. And it's just fascinating, especially reading Surah Al-Baqarah, for example, the cow. And like especially the first 5 verses, like I think at some point I memorized them. So when I was reading the English part, I was actually like, oh, okay, what would this be in Arabic? And then I remembered I actually do have the Arabic, like my grandfather's Arabic Quran. So like I started having it also with me and like looking at both versions, which is really nice. I think the Arabic one gives me like feeling of like being connected to my roots, connected to my family, but the English one is more like, oh, okay, it's more like level, like this more intellectual. Yes, exactly. And I really, really appreciate the footnotes, Muhammad Assad's footnotes, and even the introduction. I really, really like that.
Yes, his footnotes are literally the biggest reason why that's the translation and the only translation that we endorse. It's not perfect, of course, no human is perfect, but I've done my best throughout the year to sort of highlight anything that needs a little bit of an update in the curriculum. But yeah, his footnotes, it literally provides all of the missing historical context that's purposely left out sometimes when people are attacking Islam. So it's very important for all of us to know. And then Matthew, did you want to also speak? No? Okay. No pressure. Okay, go ahead, Sarah.
It's been such a delight to be in the program. I've read the Quran in Arabic in its entirety and didn't really understand much of what I was reading aside from, some of the basics like, who and Allah and Rab, some of those words that I was more familiar with. And there's a beauty in being able to recite the Quran and connect with it in Arabic, but it's not my native language. And every time that I tried to approach the English translation, I feel like I got stuck on Surah Al-Baqarah, as many folks have mentioned. I think I got a little intimidated by it because there are some aspects of it that have a really harsh tone, so it just felt really overwhelming. But alhamdulillah, through your curriculum, and I think also the power of community, even though we're not necessarily sitting and reading it together, just feeling the presence of you all virtually, I think that has helped me overcome that mental block and that fear. It's something that I think before I was thinking of it as like, this is something I really need to do as a Muslim, as a practicing Muslim, to connect with the Quran and read its translation. And I almost thought of it as like a must do, but now I'm finding myself really looking forward to it and enjoying it. And it's just, Yeah, it's been such a blessing. So thank you to everybody who's been involved in bringing us together, and for everybody who's participating, because your energy is supportive, whether or not we ever get to meet. I really appreciate you all.
Alhamdulillah. So glad to have you in our program this year. Thank you for joining.
When I first approached it, because Arabic is one of 3 languages I speak, and I was raised with memorizing it, but it came from a perspective of a fear-based faith, where if you don't do something from the Quran, or if you don't learn it, you'll be punished, and it came from a place of scarcity that instead in the program, at least for the first month, it's kind of like being wrapped in a really warm blanket in the winter and you just feel warm and cozy. And that's how I think I felt about it. It's just, oh, there's just so much love. And even relearning and unlearning things like, what does kafir mean? And why in my circle of friends, it's used in a way that's weaponized against other people who come from different faiths and religions. And it helped me really understand what biases I had coming in. And I really like that, because I think that's the purpose of, at least as a Muslim, for me to challenge myself. And I really appreciate that with a lot of these prompts that are helping me rethink.
Alhamdulillah. And give yourself credit too, right? Because a lot of different people could read the same thing and it just doesn't go through because they're not open to it. So that also says something about what you're willing and you're open and trusting to let in. And inshallah, it flourishes in an even more beautiful way as you go through the whole Quran.
Thank you so much again for organizing this. I have read the translation of the Quran several times in my life, and I actually had set the intention to read it again this year. And I'm so glad I learned about this class, because I was not familiar with this particular translation. And I am simply amazed with like how robust it is. And I also really love the discussion in the introduction about like the importance of language and how we can't really fully understand it because of language like being a framework in which to understand things. And we don't, not only do most of us not speak that language, most people don't speak that type of Arabic. So, and that's like one thing is that I just really appreciate it. The other thing is that I am amazed at like, I feel like the Quran like grows with you. Like as you grow with a person, it almost like shows you different things about yourself. And you think that it's like changing with you, but it doesn't change. So it's interesting how you just change, and suddenly it shows something to you that you couldn't see before. So yeah, I feel really good about this. I'm really appreciative of this. And I have like a million highlights and I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe it says this. So feeling very appreciative of this class.
Alhamdulillah. Yeah, it truly is a book for all people of all times, all intelligence levels, all classes, all races. It's for everybody. And even for an individual, it's for all times in your life. So it truly is such a gift. And thank you for being part of our program. Uh, Winona, go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I am really happy to be part of this. I am amazed that you have been able to go through Quran, pick out portions, and then come up with questions that that go deep into a person, to perhaps have them to explore things that they had never thought of exploring before. I've read Qur'an multiple times and actually facilitate a Qur'an study class. So I am really interested in experience how you have put this together and how other people respond to Qur'an. I know that every year when I read Qur'an, I see something different. It's amazing how there's not a time when I don't read Quran that I don't come up with something that I've never read before. And I've been doing this for a lot of years, but I look forward to experiencing more. I look forward to understanding how you have done this. I think it is so amazing. And I think you are amazing. And I'm sure that everyone who goes through this Quran literacy program will find Quran amazing. In the work that I do, I find that there are many people who start reading Quran. They want to read Quran, but they don't know how. They don't know how to get what they need for their lives. So if they don't get it on the first page and it seems unfamiliar in the language and in the visionary aspect of it, because Quran is very visual, they put it down. So one of the things that I try to do is to try to find ways to help people to get into the text, get into the Word of God,
And
because it
are you
is,
referencing your work in chaplaincy in the prisons as well?
yes, yes.
I just want people to
It's
know
for
what
it's for them and it's for me. um, yes. So I guess I'm talking on two different levels, right? But I'm working with people who have never read Quran before, people who were reared as Muslim and who somehow have gotten off the path. Working with people who are, I've got people in these groups who are very highly educated, and you don't think that in prisons that you will find people who have that high level of education, but you think of people who don't know anything about anything, whether it's life or whether it's academics or whether it's, but we have a whole span of intellectual, academic, street experience, um, people whose families have been dysfunctional, or families who have been right on the mark, but something happened to the individual. So I'm looking at how Allah speaks to his prophet, and all the prophets, all of the prophets, their job has been the same. Their communities the cultures of their communities may have been the same or different. But I think one of the things that I wrote in one of my questions was that Adam was a template, a pattern for human beings. So what he went through is what all the prophets, all the human beings go through and have gone through. So there are so many things that we have to learn. What they learned, what Allah gives us in prophecy, in all the messengers and prophets that he sends, it's in all of us too. So the lessons that he tells to his prophets, the mission that he's given to his prophets, we also have those missions. We also have those patterns. We also have um, what they experienced and what the people have experienced. We all do,
Yeah.
So Allah knows best.
Yes. Thank you. Yeah, and I'm so glad that you said street smart, right? I think it's really important for us to value street smarts and book smarts. And thank you. I'm trying to be better about taking compliments, so thank you. I have, my for those of you who aren't familiar with my Quran story, when I was in, I think, 8th grade and 9th grade, I got kicked out of 3 schools, and I was on a very treacherous path. And then I read the Quran. Then 9/11 happened when I was just a few years later, and that prompted me to want to look into what is this, what are all these lies in the media? Are they true? And I started reading it for myself in English, and that's what changed the entire course of my life. Made me extremely passionate about Islam, and I've basically dedicated my life to the Quran ever since. And it's kind of blossomed in different ways. But I was really happy. I actually wasn't even planning to write a curriculum last year. It just, so many things went wrong, that it changed the shape of the program, and I ended up having to write it. And I just feel really honored that I was able to basically put everything I know that can help people, whether it's from my own personal experience or people coming to me for advice or help over the years, or, the mentorship I do, or even, 10 years of now running the Women's Mosque. I've tried to put in everything that you need to know to protect you along your journey. So thank you for acknowledging that. Inshallah, I still do have my dream of, like every single topic that I put in the curriculum is really like a film that I want to make, or something like that. So I still have that goal, but I'm glad that I put it here. So all the lessons and reflections. So I do hope that everyone is able to benefit from it. And again, it's not like last year it was optional. This year we are asking everyone to read the questions. You'll see sometimes in there'll be like longer pieces, like an article. Or like a long video. It's not required to do those extra things, but all I ask is that you read through all of the questions. So even if you don't have time to, sit down and journal it, at least it's going through your mind throughout the rest of your day, so you can reflect and grow. Okay, so I wanted to start with a general question that was in the curriculum, and I think it's related to, I believe it's in Surah Fatiha. We asked this, but the question is, what is your personal definition of happiness? And this might sound like a random question, but if we actually think about it critically, right? And we look at all of the nefarious evil forces and all the corruption going on in the world, isn't it all couched in promising people happiness and selling people an idea of happiness that is actually false, or at the very most is just limited to this secular world, or not secular world, to this material world, ignoring all of the consequences in the afterlife? So I thought it'd be nice if we could all share what our personal definition of happiness is, so that we can again work together to rebuild what has been lost out of humanity, and just general culture, healthy culture, when we stop valuing what's really important and we start valuing what's sold to us for a profit. Matthew, yay, you came through. Let's hear from you.
And I wrote this also in my response to the question is, I think community is at the center. So when I think to times where my heart has really been overflowing with happiness, and it's been in moments of community. I think back to a time when I was living abroad and playing ultimate frisbee. That community meant a lot to me in terms of my social life, my friendships, getting to be the person I like to be, the best version of myself. And it's in community that I find I'm the best version of myself. And so I think for me, happiness is very tied into the people that you gather around yourself, who gather to you. And I think that also goes very hand in hand with the project that the Women's Mosque of America is leading here and bringing people together to read Quran. So that was for me the center and the core of everything.
Beautiful, thank you. And good job pushing yourself, even though you seemed a little shy at first. You got through it. Excellent.
Yeah. Talking is
Excellent.
usually not my problem.
Hey, oh, really? Okay, never mind. I don't encourage you that. But I'm glad you spoke up. Okay, Saba.
I think mine is more of a criteria for my happiness rather than an example. Um, and as I reflect on it, I'm thinking it's a feeling of some kind of positive feeling that I can engage in or with without imposing harm on anyone or anything. Um, I'm realizing that that's an important piece. It can't for me be something that I feel that's positive if it's going to impart harm on someone else or something else.
Yeah, and that's the way that we're all born, right? In Islam, we're taught that we're all born with fitra, in a state of purity and innocence. And that is our natural state. The things that make us happy, if we see someone being harmed, it doesn't make us happy. And so that's excellent, that you're still in line with that true sense of happiness that we're all born with.
For me, when I think of when I'm at my happiest, it's when I'm completely lost in the present moment and totally involved in whatever I'm doing. I think in positive psychology, I think it is, they have this concept of being in a flow state. And where that comes up for me a lot is in my work. I'm a surgeon in training, and when I'm involved in a case and like it feels like if I'm doing the case, it feels like the whole world has fallen away and I lose track of time and I'm just focused on like doing my best in that moment. Or like when I go to a movie where you sit in the theater and you completely lose track of time and you're totally immersed in the story, and then the movie's over and you realize what happened with the last 2 hours of my life. It's that kind of feeling of being totally present and engaged in the moment that I find I'm most happy.
Yeah. And Zane, do you want to share too?
Yeah, sure. For me, it's connection and connecting. I think mostly the joy I get is connecting with other people. But I think that could also mean like connecting with nature if I'm like out on a hike, with the work of art, if I'm in a museum or something, or with music or my cat. There's a lot of connection happening between me and my cat. So yeah, I think a moment I feel like I find like a feeling of purpose there sometimes, even if it's not like a greater purpose. It's just like, oh my gosh, I could keep this person entertained, or I could listen to them, or they can, they're there to like hear me out as well. So yeah, it's where I find myself happiest.
I think happiness is sometimes when you feel content, feel good about something. When I give it to somebody, something, then I really feel good. And I understood the word happiness when I came to know there's a difference between happiness and pleasure, because happiness is long term. Whenever you can remember that incident, you feel happy. But pleasure is only for some time. So, and when I was small, I used to hear that whenever somebody gave me a present, they used to say, oh, I'm so feeling happy to give you. So I thought, how can one feel happy when you give something? But when I have my own nieces and I gave them the present, and when they wore it, then I felt the real happiness. Then I understand, oh, the elders used to tell me that, we feel happy when we give you something.
Beautiful. Yeah. See, this is another great example of, the complete opposite of what we're sold, right? We're told that we have to consume, we have to buy, we have to steal to be happy, or we have to compete and be above others. When really the greatest source of happiness comes from generosity and sharing. Awesome.
What is happiness for me? It's when I can feel it maybe from others, but it's a place that I can feel in my heart, where my heart feels light and my body feels balanced and aligned. And I feel centered, where my posture feels good and in connection with the oneness of others. It's a place where I feel that connection, where that breath is held, where you feel like you can always inhale just a little bit more. That place where the heart is lighter than a feather.
I really appreciate hearing that embodied experience of happiness too, right? A lot of times we're sold concepts of happiness that are completely disembodied, their theories, their ideas, but it's not actually the full experience of happiness. So that's really important to tap into.
For me, I think happiness at this time in my life, anyway, means a peace, a contentment, and an embracing of things I cannot control. I think it has given me a lot more happiness in recent times in my life and recent days when I can accept what is, even though what is may be very contrary to my very soul or what brings me joy. If I was in control of everything in my day, it would not be that thing. But what has caused me happiness, I understand happiness to mean more and more each day, is to really understand acceptance of what is and just asking the question how I can show up with my values and in alignment with my truth. And that's not as easy as it sounds, but I think that understanding that that is where my happiness resides within my choices. And I think, with recent times, and I think just in one's personal life, that has become very evident to me that if I'm going to stay sane, and not only sane, but if I'm going to thrive and be happy, it's going to be accepting and then figuring out what to do. Except it's not means, oh, that's just how it is, but accepting. So I think that has given me great contentment and peace and purpose in a way. And the struggle is in finding that answer for me. It's not by any means, I think, going to be easy, but just peaceful to know that I have agency. So yeah, that's happiness for me nowadays.
Wonderful. And the irony is when you're in that state, you're more effective making change and solving these problems that bother all of us. So that's the true sauce. All right, go ahead, Jake.
I would say for me, this is something that has definitely got me thinking. Happiness is often very commercialized. But also, my mom always says, in order to know what peace is, you also have to know what war tastes like, right? And I think that happiness requires the ability to understand the suffering of the world, and being able to utilize your experiences to alleviate that for others. So for me, I think happiness is utilizing my experiences and my story in ways that, Allah has really supported me, not proselytizing, just naming, just naming it, just naming,
No, proselytize
just
for the
naming
Quran.
it,
Yes,
and
go
just
ahead,
naming it.
go ahead.
To be able to support others who are in a state of suffering because we are called to do so. I think that the act of flourishing and finding ways to flourish is a great way to do it. But how do we get beyond just a survival mode? Survival is just a base level understanding of what happiness is. And I think that we've looked at survival as happiness versus creating a society that relies on thriving. How are we able to get beyond the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, to also say that we should also support each other in thriving activities and flourishing activities. So, alhamdulillah.
Yeah, great point. Yeah, sometimes I feel, and the reason I harp so much on media and what's sold to us is because that is essentially, I got passionate and got interested in Islam because of the media and all the lies I saw. And so I wanted to undo that. And so I, went to film school, and that is my training, and that's what I have an eye out for. And sometimes what I see as sold as happiness is the absence of pain or the absence of suffering. But we all know, if you've ever gone for a hike, you're suffering the whole way, and you're also having a great time, especially when you reach the top. But it's also that whole experience of what you've been able to overcome, what you've been able to discover about yourself. So I'm really glad to hear you say that and pick up on that. Let's see. I thought I saw Sophia and Iqbal, but I don't see their.
Well, I wanted to say something, but I didn't want to contradict you.
Oh, contradict me, please, please. I love that. Go for it.
I was in constant back pain, several months back. And then I started a new kind of regimen of exercising, and I was free of that pain, and I was very happy. So that suffering was, so that's what came to my mind. But I didn't want right after you said, well, we can.
No. And Sophia and Iqbal are continuing class members. They were in our very first class last year, so we're happy to see them back. No, I of course there's shades to all of this, but what I'm talking about is the fake promise that if you get rid of all of the suffering, then you will be happy. Whereas suffering is a part of life, and it's not promised to us that this life will be completely free of suffering. And I'm glad to hear you're feeling better. Alhamdulillah.
There are a lot of things that make me happy, and I'm just trying to think of the different things, and then it just reminded me of the names of Allah, that everything, all I was just kind of going down the names of Allah, and I was thinking well, if I do a part of that, I'm happy. If I do a part of that, all the names, if I just kind of think about the things that I do, that is godly, makes me happy. So that's all I wanted to say.
Wonderful, beautiful. All right, great. So we'll do one last question. I'm going to break everyone out into breakout rooms, and you guys can discuss amongst yourselves, and then come back in here afterwards. So the question is, what theory do you believe about Adam's origin and why? So this is from day 11. And yeah, there is no, consensus. None of us was there, so none of us can say with certainty that we know what Adam was, who he was, or what formation he took on. But there are lots of different theories about his nature. And I don't even want to get into the different iterations because I don't want to influence discussion. But let's hear. What do you think what do you believe about Adam's origin, and how did you come to that conclusion? What might have influenced your beliefs on Adam, the nature of Adam, and what he is?
In the breakout groups, one of my peers, her name is Bonnie, she talked about the relationship between Adam and Atom, and I agree that there is a correlation there with Atom, ATOM being the first particle, and then Adam being representative of the first man. And what I've gathered from the Quran is that Adam, this first man, was born into a pristine state, a divine state, whether that definitely be a divine state intellectually, but it could also represent a divine world physically. But I think we can just stay on the intellectual ethical realms. He was a divine being, but then he fell victim to his lower desire, and as a result, he had the same kind of fall that Shaitan had. Shaitan was a hater, to say the least. So Shaitan was kicked out of paradise and placed into the Danya to rule. And I think that because Adam fell victim to his lower desires, his perceptive reality changed from one of heaven to the dunya that we're all living in now, and we are striving to get out of that. And we have brief glimpses of heaven, whether it be through meditation or through love or through different relationships. But I think a lot of us, or I can only speak for myself, struggle with the day-to-day weight of living in the dunya?
I feel from reading the Quran, and I've read the Quran a few times, and I've also read different viewpoints of the creation of Adam too, from like Sufi, people from the Sufi, Islamic background, scholars. And the way that I saw it was that this was Adam before Adam was differentiated into Adam and Eve. And so I feel like this was a metaphysical creation of Adam, where it's the human spirit. And I think spirit is not the correct word either, but it's the other reality, is that like we have our clay, our material selves, but then we have a whole other nature that when it's a believer, it's I know that there's that saying that the light, if there was the light in the universe, well, I don't remember the saying again, but it's just there's a vastness to us, and so I think that was the perfect state, or the state that is our full potential. And because within the loins of Adam was all of creation. So the way that I see that is that it's not like Adam was a man and this is a story about a man. I feel like it's the story of humanity. So to me, it's the humanity is presented, it's me, it's everybody, else, is that and so it's primordial Adam to me. So and then it's so I didn't see it as like a localized place and then a localized like figure, like a red little devil with tails and then like angels with wings. Like I think it's a lot more than that. And to me, that's what explains the language and the descriptors that are given to describe that event as well. So that's the cool thing, because the more I read and I learn about it, the more it just blows my mind, and it's much more of a bigger event than we realize. And sorry to go long, but just another parallel of why like I try to keep my mind open about this is that like when the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, made the ascent to heaven and was approaching the Lot tree, just approaching the Lot tree was an amazing event. Like his eyes did not swerve left or right. And just the description of that, like I don't think it's just like a tree with plants. I don't think they're meant to be taken as very finite things. Not that that's bad, but the more that I transcend the physical, then the more it gets to, for me, spiritual and on so many levels. Thanks.
Wonderful. Thank you. Yeah, and I'm glad you discussed different schools of thought, right? So everybody's coming into this program coming from so many different influences, schools of thought. And so the goal this year is to go directly to the Quran and see what have you learned, or what are you coming in with that you need to maybe expand your thinking about, maybe drop, maybe listen to what someone else is presenting and think of it in a new way. So I'm gonna end it there just because I don't want to go too much over time, but this is great. This is getting off to a great start. You guys are understanding that we're here to expand our perspectives and inshallah come back to the Quran and really find out what is in the Quran, maybe what are verses that you thought were literal that are actually metaphorical, and vice versa. But inshallah, this will be a deepening and flourishing experience for all of you. I want to just thank you all again for joining this program. You all are doing great and are active, which is what we want. Again, this is not a passive space. You're going to get out of it as much as you put into it. Thank you all again. This is our 10-year anniversary again. So if you've benefited at all in the past 10 years from the Women's Mosque of America, I do ask you to support us generously this month. We're trying to fundraise to basically make up for the startup costs that it took to create a second startup within our first startup. So the Women's Mosque of America started 10 years ago. Then we launched our Quran literacy program last year, and this is our second year. And in order to do that smoothly, we did have to pause our women-led Jummah program. And understandably, a lot of the people who were donating to our space because they liked the Jummas, they also paused their donations. So we do need to, inshallah, ask for your support, and we hope that you will support us. And then this Ramadan, we're going to be starting a new donation campaign, fundraising campaign, to inshallah next year bring back our women-led Jumma so that we can run both programs simultaneously. So thank you all again. 10 years strong. Thank you for believing in us, for being a part of our movement and our mosque, to uplift the entire ummah by empowering Muslim women and girls, and for being a part of our vision for a worldwide women-led Islamic Renaissance. So thank you all for being a part of that. I really appreciate having you as part of our community.